been a little over a month since I've caught a fish. Getting antsy. Whoa, got some on my computer there. Hey, I'm Ben. I'm a huge fly fisherman, and in today's video, I'm gonna talk about fly rods. This video is prompted by a recent one that I did about all the fly rods that I owned. I talked about which ones I like for dry fly fishing or nymphing and stuff like that. And a few people commented and asked if I could do a video explaining why I like certain rods for certain things. I thought that was a good idea, so this is that video. As with any video about rods, I gotta throw out the disclaimer that we might have differing opinions on rods. What I like might be different from what you like. Also, the line that you're using on a rod has an enormous impact on how that rod is going to perform. Or you might just disagree with something that I say, and that's fine. You don't need to be a little baby about it in the comments. We can disagree. This video is just gonna be about trout fishing, mostly for the sake of brevity. This video is gonna be mostly about graphite rods because that's what I fish most of the time. I fish a little bit of glass and no bamboo. You bamboo guys are always leaving comments about how cool you are without realizing that no one cares. So let's jump in and start with dry fly rods. What makes a good dry fly rod for me? I want a dry fly rod that is not super stiff. I just want to throw the fly and the line. The rod needs to be soft enough that just the fly and the line will sufficiently load or bend the rod and make it work. If it's too stiff, I'm gonna have to force the rod to bend, and good casting is not gonna come from that. I want a rod that has a smooth feel to the cast. I want to be able to lay down my dry fly with a delicate presentation. Most of the time, my dry fly rod on a big river is a 4 or 5 weight. But if you're throwing really big flies or maybe droppers behind it, a 6 weight could be appropriate too. 7 would be a little weird. For length, if things are pretty wide open, I think 9 feet is about perfect. Any longer than that, and I start to lose accuracy. If I'm trying to hit a little tiny spot next to the bank, I'm much better with a 9-foot rod than a 10 or 11-foot rod. Maybe that's just me, I don't know. Rods shorter than 9 feet are great for dry flies too if you're fishing somewhere with trees close to you or if you're fishing on small streams. And that's a good segue into the next rods I'm gonna talk about, small stream rods. For me, it's small stream, small fish, small rod. I think that's pretty universal. I think a 7 or an 8-foot rod is great for small streams. Anything shorter than about 7 feet for me just isn't real fun to cast. Rods longer than 8 feet are great for small streams that have pocket water so you can reach out there and high stick. But if there's trees or brush around, you're not gonna have a good time with a long rod. You're gonna get hung up. For small streams, I like lighter line weights, 4 and below. You're generally fishing smallish flies to smallish fish, so size the rod appropriately. Small streams are a great place to break out your fiberglass rod. That's where I use mine. You can really get the most out of that bendy rod from those little wiggly fish. All right, next I'm gonna talk about what I like for nymphing rods. Yes, I know nymphing is lame, but it's a fact of life for some of us. My nymphing rod is gonna be a 5 or a 6 weight. Anything lighter just doesn't have enough oomph. And I suppose you could use a 7, but I just don't see the point. A 6 will get it done. I'm generally gonna want a little bit of a stiffer rod for nymphing because that rod's gonna have more load on it. I've got a bobber, a split shot, 2 stupid nymphs. That's a lot of stuff to chuck around. If the rod was too soft, it would collapse during a cast and not perform. With the extra stiffness, it should balance out just right, theoretically. If you're gonna be nymphing, a longer rod is better. We talked about high sticking before, that comes into play, but also for mending. A longer rod will allow you to mend further away. I used to nymph with an 11-foot rod. Oh my God, I think I could mend to the moon with that thing. It was a champ at roll casting too. Anyway, so for nymphing, I like a stiffer, longer rod. Yes, of course, there's lots of jokes you could make there, but let's move on. All right, next I'm gonna talk about what I like for Euro nymphing rods. Actually, I think we're gonna stick to rods that are made to actually cast a fly line because that's what fly fishing is. And listen, if you're tired of the same old Euro and Tenkara jokes all the time, I got bad news for you. I'm not gonna stop. All right, next I could talk about what rods I like for fishing wet flies, but I don't think I even own any wet flies anymore. So let's talk about streamer rods. For fishing streamers, I like a stiff rod that needs a lot of mass to load the rod and bend it. That's because I'm usually fishing a big weighted fly with a heavy sinking tip line. That's a lot of junk to throw around, and I need the rod to not collapse under all the weight. But that's how I fish streamers most of the time. You might be doing it with a floating line and a much smaller fly. For my streamer rods, I never go longer than 9 feet. More length can help you get more distance, but the swing weight will be heavier and it'll be more work to cast that rod. Sometimes even going shorter than 9 feet down to like 8 or 8.5 is better. It's less fatigue if you're making casts over and over, like streamer fishing from a boat and casting at the bank all day. With a shorter rod, it's just easier to do that all day. And you don't need a ton of distance if the guy rowing the boat is any good at all. It's up to the rower to determine how far you're gonna cast by where he puts the boat. I like an 8 weight for a streamer rod because most of the time I'm in the boat fishing the big stupid stuff. If you're fishing with smaller flies or a lighter line, a lighter rod might be better for you. A 5 is about as low as I would go to be effective with like woolly buggers and stuff, and then a 6 or a 7 or an 8 is great too. Just find where in that spectrum you should be for the fishing that you're doing. Like the size of the river, the size of the fish, and the size of the flies that you're throwing. If that doesn't make any sense to you, it's okay. Just leave a comment and I'll try to straighten it out for you. Or more likely, some know-it-all will jump in and answer it for me. And that's gonna do it for today's video. I hope that cleared up any questions you may have had about why I fish certain rods in certain situations. Thank you as always for watching another one of my huge fly fisherman videos. I'll be back as soon as I can with another video about fly fishing for you. Until then, think about if the rod you're using is right for you, and stay huge. I was talking too much. I didn't even get to drink this thing.